Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the meeting of the Civic Licensing Committee. Do we have any apologies?
Yes, we've got apologies from Councillor Brace, convener.
Right. Yeah, thank you. Declarations of interest? No declarations of interest. Committee membership with reference to Article 8B of the minutes of the meeting of the Angus Council on the 26th of May 2022. The committee agreed to note that members appointed to this committee. Councillor Clark intimated that due to workloads and other civic duties, she was resigning from the Civic Licensing Committee. Yeah, and it was noted that the vacancy would be filled.
Sorry, convener.
Yes, am I on minutes? Sorry, am I on the
wrong? Sorry, it was appointments.
Yeah, sorry, I'm on the wrong page.
Yeah.
Okay. After having my pages all written out.
Yeah, so it's item 3 next, the appointments for the Public Procession Subcommittee, which acts with delegated powers.
Sorry, I didn't realise that we have double-sided pages now. Okay. Yeah, sorry, we're on the appointments. The Public Procession Subcommittee to act with delegated powers. To deal with notifications of public processions where Chief Superintendent considers the march should be prohibited. The membership of the subcommittee consists of 3 members, and accordingly, the committee are asked to appoint 3 members and, where appropriate, to appoint a convener of the subcommittee. Okay, so we have to get a committee together for the Public Procession Subcommittee. Is any members would like to come on to this committee?
Convener, normally in the past, the convener and vice convener has been part of this committee.
Okay, that's fine. So we just need another person to join us.
Is there any nominations for another member? It doesn't actually sit very often.
I'm looking at Lloyd and Lloyd's looking at me, but I don't know.
I think in the interests, convener, of balance, it would be better if it was a non-administration person.
Yeah, I thought that would be the case, yes. Everybody's hiding now. Councillor Gregg?
Convener, I was just about to say, yeah, I'll put myself forward for that one then.
Well done, thank you very much. Okay, we have
convener. Were you happy to be appointed as convener of this subcommittee?
Yes, okay then. Will do.
Okay. So that's yourself, convener, the vice convener, and Councillor Gregg, appointed as the Public Procession Subcommittee, with yourself as the convener of it. The next appointment is the Taxi and Private Hire Member Officer Working Group. And just to make members aware of the remit of this taxi and private hire, it's more a working group rather than a committee, and it's to engage with the trade to discuss and consider concerns arising, assess the current processes, procedures and systems in place, and including the fees and charging for taxi and private hire and operator licences, identify improvements and efficiencies which would assist both the council and the trade, and provide transparency in respect of the fees charged by the council in respect of taxi and private hire and operator licences. So we're looking for nominations for 4 members convener to join this member officer working group.
Okay. Anyone? Oh, Councillor Whiteside?
Yeah, I would like to nominate the convener and vice convener for this as well. I think it would be appropriate if they were willing to do it.
Yeah, well, we're on the civic licensing anyway, so that I'm okay with that. Are you okay with that, Councillor Meehan?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay, we need 2 other people to help us. I'm looking at Councillor Fotheringham, but I can't see his picture. Is he around?
Oh, of course, convener. I'll join you.
What about Councillor Scott, just for our gender balance and things? What do you think? How many times does this one meet, Fiona?
This is a new member officer working group. It was set up and approved by the previous committee before the elections, so it hasn't sat at all.
Yeah.
Tina may wish to comment on this.
Yeah, it's not my decision really, but I didn't anticipate it meeting any more than 3 or 4 times a year.
Oh, here you go, Councillor Scott. What do you think? Can I persuade you?
Yeah, I'll go on it.
I'll get you a coffee.
And would you like to appoint someone as the chairman of this group?
Oh, I would like to appoint Councillor Fotheringham, but I don't know whether you'll agree to it or not.
Oh, you're really going for it today, convener.
I've not seen you for a while.
Okay.
Okay, so Councillor Fotheringham, so the membership is convener Councillor Fotheringham, Councillor Scott and Councillor Fotheringham as chair of the member officer working group.
Here we go,
Okay.
That's great. Thank you very much. Okay, we're moving on to the minutes of previous meeting. Are those minutes approved?
Agreed.
Delegated approvals, number 5. Okay,
Agreed.
that agreed. Okay. Right, okay. So moving on to the. Sorry, I'm getting a bit lost with these papers today. I'm a bit problems. I seem to have lost a page. Can you keep me right on this one?
It's a taxi fare review one, convener. It starts
Yeah.
on page 12 to 32. We've got 3 taxi drivers that are in the call today, and I think the 3 of them wish to speak. We've got Wendy Foreman, we've got Mr. Healy, and we've got Mr. Gibson from Lorimer Cars.
Okay.
So if you want to maybe hear from some of the taxi drivers first.
That would be really helpful. So whoever wants to come in first.
Do you want to do Wendy Foreman? Will we do her first?
Yeah, Mrs. Foreman, that would be great.
Okay.
I can't see a picture of her.
She's on the telephone.
Okay, that's great. Mrs. Foreman, could you let us know what you think about the taxi fares, please?
Yeah, good morning. We haven't had a rise in the last 4 years due to, well, COVID, obviously, we didn't go for a rise because of everything that occurred with that. In this 4 years, wages have gone up considerably, which I still employ people and pay them by the hour. Fuel costs have rocketed through the roof. Insurance for cars is just going up every year. I mean, I have 4 cars myself, and we're £10,500 a year for insurance. Garage bills have rocketed from about £50 to about £85, £90 an hour when your car's in the garage. The cost of vehicles have rocketed. Operators buying electric cars are looking about £35,000 for a car. Our licence fees have also gone up every year. Also, taxi badge fees have gone up. Tyres are just through the roof just now. I've just put a tyre on one of my smaller cars, which was £242 for a tyre. To change our meters, if it does go through, we're talking £50–60 per car to change our meters.
Yeah,
everything just seems to be going up, and you know that we really do need a rise in fares, I would say. It's given no incentive to go out at nights now because nights are so quiet. For me to put a driver out at nights, they're lucky if they're making their wages. Most of the operators now in Forfar are hitting 55, 60.
Yeah.
There seems to be no incentive for young people to go into this profession, which is a bit concerning. For the next 5–6 years, a lot of us could be winding down, you know, sort of thing. So we kind of feel we need some incentive for some younger people to come into this into the taxis and do
Yes.
what they're, do what we're doing basically. I mean, we're working 24/7 basically for nothing. You're working to pay your bills basically, and you're left with. I mean, I wouldn't like to tell you what my wage is in a year, because it's nothing to what it should be. Because being the boss, you just take what's left basically, and we're really needing the fare. We're really needing the fares to go up this time, and that seems to be the general opinion of most of my colleagues in Forfar. They're shouting for the fares to go up, and even customers are saying, "Are your fares not going up?" And we're saying, "Well, no, we have to wait till we're told to put the fares up. It has to go through a procedure." And they're saying, "Oh, that's terrible. You should be able to do it, especially with fuel costs going up and whatnot." I mean, the fuel bills have just been absolutely mental. They've been crazy at the moment. I'm guaranteed that I've started to come down slightly now, the fuel. But it's everything else. It's just, if anything goes wrong with your car, you're putting it in the garage, you're talking £200-300 to get it fixed. And, it's just, I just feel we definitely do need a rise.
Yeah, it sounds really bad. I wouldn't envy you in your business at all.
No.
Do you have
I don't think people actually realise just what's involved with taxis. We're working till 2-3 in the morning on a Saturday night, taking everybody home and everything, and and for what we're getting for it, it's you just feel, is it worth it? Sometimes I feel I should just give all this up and go and get a job somewhere else, because I'd be far better off, to be honest.
Yeah, you get like that. Do you have your opinions on the tariffs? What's your suggestions for the tariff one?
Well, tariff one, I did put in 3. I think my one was 380.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well. Yeah,
I put that in, but I also lowered the distance as well. The one that was opposed, the distance was not lowered or anything. It was actually increased, which meant we were making, it's just not giving us an incentive to do the job basically. I think the majority of them did put 380 and lowered the distance a little. £4 at night and lowered the distance. Tariff three, I think I put £5.40 in mine, but I noticed some of them put it down to £5, but the ones that put it down to £5 actually don't have the larger vehicles.
Okay, so they won't be doing it so much at that time.
So, and tariff 4, the lowered as well. One of them put down to £5, which will get £5.10 at the moment. And tariff 4, they put to £5.80, which will get £6.20 at the moment. So,
that tariff 4 is the biggie one. That's the one that's the most expensive.
Yes, but I mean, that's going out Christmas, New Year, when everybody doesn't want to be dry. Everybody wants to spend time with their family, and we're giving up time with our families to go out so that other people can enjoy their Christmas Day and their Boxing Day and their New Year's Day and whatever, and I feel to get less than what we're getting now on these tariffs would be just a kick in the teeth, basically.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's great. Thank you very much for coming on and letting us know what the situation is.
Thank you.
We'll hear from the other taxi drivers as well.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gibson, who would like to now speak, convener?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Gibson. Can you see us and hear us okay? And can we find you? There you are. I'd let you speak now. Can't see you, but we can hear you. Is he there?
Mr. Gibson, if you're on the telephone, you have to press *6 on your telephone to unmute yourself. That's *6.
He's maybe having a job getting in.
No, he's in. I think he's just muted. But you have to press *6 to unmute Mr. Gibson. Mr. Healy, maybe Mr. Healy could come into Mr. Gibson's
Sorry to hear. Mr. Healy, are you there?
Yeah. Good morning.
Didn't say like a seance person this morning. Would you be able to let us know what the situation is with yourself?
Well, fortunately, we're in the fortunate position. Being in Carnoustie, we have a lot of visitors with the golf, and that keeps us fairly busy over the summer months. Regarding the increase in the fares, I was in agreement with the last meeting of option 7. The reason being is we in Carnoustie, it's one of the smallest regions out the taxi trade. Our customers, the local customers, are mostly elderly, and we want to keep that cost a minimum. We can't. I wouldn't agree with putting it up from 350 to 450 or 420 or 440 because it's £1 right away for an elderly person. Option 7, I would agree with. I think it's a fair enough increase. If you do any more, for an example, for every 100 hires you do at the moment for local customers, you put it up 7, 8, 9, 10%, you'll lose 25% of the customers because they've got problems and they've got economic commitments as well. So you'll lose 25 fares out of 100, approximately, I would think, by putting up too much. That's in agreement with option 7. It's an increase, but it's a minimum increase, and if people they'll appreciate the fact that we're not hitting them with 50 pence on the flag fall or £1 on an extra hire for a local run. The runs up out with the area, nobody really complains about them. It's the local people I'm thinking about, and then I think, I mean, everything's increased as the lady previously said, but it doesn't matter what you do. You're putting up any increase, it's going to have an effect on you. And the minimum increase of what option 7 is, I think that's the one that, for me anyway, would be the easiest one for me to implement. Anything else, we would lose customers.
Sorry, could I check, convener? Is this Mr. Healy that's speaking?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's just you seem to be on twice, Mr. Healy, so that's what's confusing me. It seems to be coming through. Right, okay, right. No bother.
Yeah, but I mean, we all know everybody's got the cost of increase. We've got it. As the lady said prior, the fuel's up, the servicing costs are up, the tyres are up, the price of cars is absolutely ridiculous just now. But to hit the public with another whammy, like us putting them up 10, 15%, anything anywhere near that, they'll just lose customers. So it's counterproductive. If you've got 100 customers a week now, you'll have 95 with an increase. If you go too much of an increase, you'll lose them, and which will be counterproductive because your earnings will actually go down and not up. That's basically really all I've got to say about that. I went for option 7, and I think that's the one that we should go for.
That's great, Mr. Healy. Thanks very much. Yeah, that's one of the quite a popular option as well, that one. I think Mr. Gibson's going to come in now and let him hear what he's saying.
Has Mr. Gibson worked out the tech survey? Can you hear me now?
Yes, and we can see you at the bottom. I can see you at the bottom.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I think Wendy covered pretty much everything at the start with regards to we're being thrashed with it. Absolutely everything. Costs are through the roof. I understand where Mr. Healy is coming from. Similar to the last meeting, I would rather lose customers and make profit and be in business next year than take everybody around out of my pocket. And that is the bottom line. If the companies cannot maintain profit and can't pay their bills, they're not going to be here next year. Since the last meeting to discuss this matter, I think I'm personally aware of about 12 further taxis that have been pulled off the road. And it's simply a case of it's not profitable. So we're not protecting the public by keeping the prices down if all it's going to do is take the taxis off the road, because they won't be able to get one. Currently in Montrose, I believe there was 4 taxis on of mine last night and 1 other taxi. That's what's service in Montrose, and I lost 3 out of town. So it's either we make the taxis profitable so that we're here next year, or we don't put them up sufficiently and they won't be here next year. I'm presuming that somebody has sat down with a calculator and that is the result of Appendix 5. That's a suggestion going forward. I take my hat off to whoever has done it, because nobody seems to understand how these sums actually work out. Just to look at tariff 1, a journey distance of 1 mile goes up 41 pence on that first mile. Over the rest of those figures, this is going at 11.5%, because I'd be more expensive to charge. I'll be paid hundreds of pounds to change my meters. It's going to cost, I don't know, at least £500 for me to change my meters, and it's going to take a long time to get that money back. If we decide on a percentage, that percentage, it has to be throughout. It has to be, if I can give the example, at 1 mile, it goes up 41 pence. 2 miles, it's only gone up 32 pence per mile over 2 miles. And that continues at 3 miles, it's gone up 30 pence per mile. At the 15-mile point, it's gone up 25 pence per mile over those additional 15 miles. So I don't know, there's not actually a rate card to go with this Appendix 5. I need to go away and sit down with my calculator again, but it looks like eventually we'll actually start giving them money for taking this. But I know it won't work out like that, but it has to be, I do agree we need to have a distinct and significant increase in order to protect the public. Because if the public can't get a taxi, it doesn't matter how little we charge them. We're all gone next year. And that's it. But I just want to make sure that this is done correctly. I mean, if the calculations work out to give an 11.5% increase, and that is put across Tariff 1, Tariff 2, Tariff 3, Tariff 4, that's fine. Because that wasn't what Option 7 did at the last meeting. And presumably, that's why somebody sat down and come up with Appendix 5 option. But if we're looking at any increase out of those, it would have to be the highest. And it's one thing for an owner-driver to get those increases. For an operator who also has drivers to pay and VAT and what have you that an owner-driver might not have out of that first mile on Tariff 1, the operator will get 16 pence out of that as an increase over a mile. But I'm glad there's a committee being formed or a little group being formed to communicate directly on other matters, as there are many things that need dealt with for the trade in general. But that's pretty much my take on the fare situation. An increase and a significant one.
Convener, you're on mute.
Thanks, Mr. Gibson. That was really informative. Councillor Gregg, did you want to say something, or was that an old hand, or did you want to?
Thanks, Convener. I was looking for a question, but I'm going to hold back for the moment. I may ask it again later. Thank you.
Okay. I'm not sure, Mrs. Anderson, if Mr. Healy wants to come back or not and say anything.
I think he's just, it's an old hand. I think that's the three representatives that have spoke.
Hi, it's just to pick up on a couple of points that Neil was saying there. A major increase is not going to help taxi survive. There's other problems that arise in the taxi trade, and it's not just down to fares. For instance, our particular situation at the moment, our hires from the end of June to now are up 36%. Well, airport transfers are up 34%, and the local hires are up 17%. We've got a data dispatch system that gets all this details and all this data in, so we're able to do it there. As I said earlier, a big increase will put customers off, more so in places like Montrose and Falkirk, where they've not got the access to the golf and the tourism that we have. And again, I'm saying for option 7, I realise that, Neil was saying there that it's going to cost him £500 to change these meters. I don't know what kind of meters Neil's got, but I've got Digitax and they're £40 to change. So if he's got 10 cars, it'll be 400 quid. If he's got 5 cars, it'll be £200. I don't know what kind of meters. He's maybe got more expensive meters, but the norm is Digitax meters. And just the last thing I have to say, because believe it or not, I've got to go, that is regarding the liaison committee meeting. I've been to 2 meetings. One we had in the Webster Theatre, which was not really productive. I had another one about 3 years ago. Daniel was there regarding stuff in the taxi trade. There was myself, the partner in Links Cabs, which is my wife, and our operations manager, and one driver from Reeds and Arbroath. That was how apathetic it was. I wouldn't hold my hand out for a lot of operators or a lot of drivers turning up in meetings at a liaison, because the last 3 that we've been at, nothing's been implemented. We're still now, it's 2022, and we've not got taxi badges because we've got to send in a passport photo to get it put on a bit of paper and laminated.
Convener, I think we're straying off the item that we're dealing with. We're dealing with taxi fares review at the moment, Convener. So I think, I think that we're straying from that.
Yeah, that's fine. That's me.
Once we get this committee up and running, we'll certainly give you a shout, and anybody else that's wanting to come over, we'll get all your points in writing and things. We'll certainly not be ignoring the facts that you've pointed out today. We'll need to move on because there's other councillors wanting to ask questions. But thanks very much for just now. Councillor Nicholl, you want to come in now?
It's basically a comment, but I have to agree with taxi driver Mr. Gibson. £3.50 for the last 5 years is outrageous. I mean, realistic, the prices should be up nearer £5, and cutting the prices is just a ruin of the business. That's my art.
Yeah, I'll get your point in as well. Councillor Whiteside.
Thanks, Convener. It's a really tricky one. It's getting a balance between fares for the public and the taxi drivers making a living. And I think the last time we met, we felt that option 7 was the most proportionate at the time that was put in front of us. I appreciate that since then the cost of fuel, etc., has risen and the inflation rate's risen. So it's not an easy decision at all. I still think that option 7 was the best at the time, but I appreciate the difficulties with the tariff 2 not increasing. So I wonder if a percentage increase across the board is fairer, and I'd certainly consider that if that's a popular view.
Okay, Ms. Watson.
Yeah, councillors, I was just going to highlight that the report is fairly detailed in terms of its recommendations, and I wonder whether we should use the report as a memoir to consider all matters. Fiona, do you have that there? It's really just to go through. Yes. I'll just confirm what page it's on, because there are just quite a lot for this report, and for the next 2 reports there's a lot of recommendations. So I wonder, Fiona, whether we should just take it step by step.
Yes, I think that would be helpful. So the recommendations are on page number 12, Convener.
Okay. The recommendations that consider the taxi fare review representations contained in Appendix 1 to this report, previously considered by the committee on the 9th of June 2022. We further consider the table illustrating current and proposed options contained in Appendix 2, previously considered by the committee on the 9th of June 2022. We consider Appendix 4 containing the written representations received following the publication in the Courier and Advertiser of the committee's proposed scales, which are contained in Appendix 3, and the tables of fares at Appendix 5 showing fares increased by example percentages. Fixed taxi fare scales, including waiting charges, either by choosing from illustrated options or otherwise. Would delegate authority to the Head of Legal and Democratic Services to implement the fixed fare scales following sections 17(4)D, 4E and 5 of the Civic Government Scotland Act 1982 in consultation with Police Scotland. We note that any recommendation increase represents the maximum fare chargeable by taxi drivers and it's not a compulsory fare. Notes the requirements in terms of meter changes within the body of the report and determines to follow the process currently used by Dundee City Council in the event of any meter change and determine the implication date as being the 30th of September 2022.
If we could just correct in option recommendation 5, it's the Director of Legal and Democratic Services, not the head.
Oh, right, okay, sorry, that's...
Yeah, no, that's okay, that's our fault.
Wasn't me.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want me to go on to the background as well of it, or no? That's fine. Okay. Councillor Meehan.
Thank you, convener. I think I would agree with Councillor Whiteside on this one. I accept that no rise for a few years is obviously quite difficult for the operators, and costs have gone up. There's no doubt about it. But costs are going up for everyone, including those that use taxis. I think what we have to try and do is get a balance. The thought that we should just go for the highest increase, I don't think would be a balanced decision. I think what we have to do is we have to say, okay, we have to do something for the operators because there hasn't been an increase. Costs are going through the roof, but not forget that costs are going through the roof for everyone. And I would be tempted to go for one of the options in Appendix 5, which would be a fixed percentage over the board.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Melville.
Yeah, I just want to agree with Councillor Meehan there. I think we do need to strike a balance between the interests of the taxi companies and also the interests of people who use the taxis. And I would also be minded to go for one of the options in Appendix 5.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gibson, can you come in now and just see if you have anything to say on this at the moment?
I know it's difficult seats you guys are sitting in and difficult decisions that you have to make. And it almost makes common sense to say, let's find a middle ground. So when somebody sat down and did Appendix 5, why didn't they not do 11.5% increase, 15% increase, 20% increase? Then maybe we would be talking about the 15% increase. Somebody's decided on these percentage increases, and then I'm listening to people telling me that a good decision would maybe be to look at one of the middle percentages because it seems fairer. But that's only because that's the ones that somebody has decided to calculate them on. And understanding that my costs have gone up, my fuel has gone from between £800 and £1,100 a week. This week I paid £2,660 a week. That's not a small increase. Over a month, that means I have to find between £4,000 and £5,000 extra to stay in business. Now, the only way I can do that is if I take that from my customers. I'm not going to pay to transport the public round Angus and further afield. I'm away transporting goods down to Hartlepool for a local company. the local companies will have no companies left because the only people that will be able to operate is one-man bands, one-man companies. There's been in Montrose, I don't know, 20 plus taxis gone because the companies can't afford to operate. And I am hanging in there.
Yeah.
So if somebody came back, oh, maybe we'll look at the middle one, maybe we'll tell you what, calculate them differently and then go for the middle one of that, or go for the 11.5, and we might just be here discussing things next year.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from, and this has been really difficult for us because we had this, you know, the last time, you know, when the council was formed, but then we didn't have the petrol increases, we didn't have the wage increase, we didn't have any increases at all the last time that we looked at this. It was pretty straightforward. We're just putting up percentages. We didn't have such a massive inflation that we'll have now. So that's why it's been particularly difficult this time. Councillor Meakin and Councillor Gregg.
Sorry, just to come back, hear exactly what you're saying, Mr. Gibson. The issue, I think, is the balance isn't only with the public who use it and yourselves. I mean, we have another taxi operator on here suggesting that putting fares up too high would actually mean a loss of business. So I think that's an assessment we have to take as well. Given, added to that, I mean, we've got to look around, and I know it's got in a sense nothing to do with taxis, but the police, I think, we're getting 5%, local government are getting 3.5%. Looking at things like 20% increases, to me, seems a bit folly at the moment.
I think Miss Madsen wants to come in now. I think we're kind of straying away, but from the actual getting on with the jobs here. Yeah. You're on mute, sorry, Tina.
If discussions take as long as they take, Councillor Dunno, I don't have a difficulty with that. I just wanted to cover, Mr. Gibson raised that the percentages had been chosen in Appendix 5. Appendix 5 was designed to assist with regard to what could be an option for members. It's by no means definitive. It's by no means binding upon members. Members can choose whatever decision they want to choose. This was just designed to try to be helpful because the tariffs are very difficult to follow for a lot of people. So that was designed to try and give some assistance.
Thanks. Councillor Gregg?
Thank you, Convener. Yeah, I agree with Councillor Whiteside. There's a lot in here. It's a very, very complicated subject, taxi fares. And ultimately what we're possibly going to be deciding here is whether or not a business continues to succeed or if it fails. These are wages that are going into these people's pockets. So there's such a responsibility here to make sure that we're making the right decision so that we are having a balance with keeping these people in jobs and able to transport the public at the same time. From the previous meeting when this was put to us, I just want to make it clear in my head that I know what I'm looking at here. So rather than an actual cost pence per mile thing, we're looking at an actual percentage to increase just across the board, and trying to make it fairer that way. Again, looking at all these various different tables and prices and things, it is very, very difficult to try and to come to these things. So I welcome all the comments and everything else from everyone else.
Councillor Gregg, you're not bound by any percentage increase. You can make whatever decision you want to make. Appendix 5, as I said, was just designed to be helpful. It's not saying that you have to choose one of those.
Yeah, I myself looked at the majority of the correspondence that we've had in, and it looks like Tariff 1 and Tariff 2. The general consensus is £3.80 for Tariff 1 and £4 for Tariff 2. So I'm not sure. What do you think about that, Mr. Gibson?
I'm quite happy with an increase if the increase is sufficient. Going back to Councillor Magson, yeah, I understand that the committee does not have to go with any of the proposals, be it the earlier ones or Appendix 5. And, you know, I appreciate that. To Councillor Meehan and your comments about, you know, Mr. Healy saying with reference to reduction in business, I will take a reduction in business, which there will not be, and I would think those figures are greatly exaggerated by Mr. Healy. If people require transport, they're going to require transport, and they're going to pay what the charge will be currently, just like they do at the shops, just like they do for everything else they're paying for at the moment. The pure difference with the taxi trade is I can't set my prices without Angus Council saying this is how much to set it at. If there is a decrease in service because in business because of an increase in price, then that means that the work we are doing will be profitable. But we'll still be here to service everyone. If you're saying we'll keep them the same and run us out of work, we won't be here and nobody will get a taxi.
Yeah, totally agree with you. I've got Councillor Gregg and I've got Councillor Scott, and I'm not sure who was first. Well, I'll bring in Councillor Scott first, Councillor Gregg, because I've not heard from Councillor Scott. Is that okay? Are you there, Jill?
Yeah, sorry, I'm struggling to get my hand to. Honestly, I'm really concerned about this because obviously, you know, listening to Councillor Meehan saying, you know, what police pay rises is and all the rest of it, but petrol has gone up through the roof, and I totally agree with Mr. Gibson. I think we need to protect our taxi trade. You know, if they can't run their business successfully, then they're just going to give up and there'll be no taxis for anybody. So, do you know, it's a really difficult decision to make. And I wondered, could we have a adjournment to discuss, do you think? Would that be possible?
Fiona, would that be possible for us just to have like a 5 minutes or something just between this as a board? Is that okay to have that?
Yes, it certainly would be possible. We would just ask the members of the public to leave the meeting, and we could certainly stop the stream and stay in this meeting if you wish to have a 5-minute adjournment.
That would be good. See if we can get something sorted out. Thank you.
Okay, so does the committee wish to adjourn for maybe 10 minutes just to be on the safe side? Okay.
Is now exiting.
Mr. Gibson, Again for Civic. Okay, convener, that's us live.
Okay, thanks everybody for coming back into the meeting. We've had a discussion and we've talked about various things. As convener, I'm looking at an increase of 11.5%. This would be the maximum that the taxi drivers could actually charge the general public, and it would be up to themselves if they wanted to lessen the amount on the tariffs when they were out and about. So I just would like to hear what the other members think on this 11.5 increase, and if it would be suited for them to vote on this percentage. Councillor Whiteside.
Thanks, convener. I would be agreeable to the 11.5% across the board. I think that would be proportionate.
Councillor happy to second Councillor Durno, Councillor Whiteside?
Yes, I'm happy to second that.
Apologies, members. If we can have your reasons for your decision when you're stating your decision.
Okay, well, my reasons for the 11.5 increase is because of the inflation is rocketing at the moment, and we don't know how far inflation is going to go. And I think it's only fair that taxi drivers can be sustainable, basically. Thank you. Councillor Whiteside.
My reason was to try and get a fair increase that was proportionate and it wasn't too excessive for the customers, whilst giving the taxi drivers a reasonable increase in order to let them carry on with their business.
Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, convener. Yeah, I would have to agree with the 11.5%, simply for the reason that that's the maximum they can charge. With fuel being so volatile, up and down, at least it provides them with a bit more stability. If they choose to charge the maximum, that's entirely up to them. If they choose to charge a bit less, then again, that's their discretionary call to make.
I'm not sure if it's Councillor Meakin or Councillor Melville next. I think maybe Councillor Meakin.
I would like to propose an increase of 9.5%. My reasons being that I believe that that's a balance between the effect of inflation on operators, but also the effect of inflation and increased costs on users.
Thank you. Councillor Melville.
Yes, thank you, convener. I would back the increase of 11.5% for reasons already stated. I do think the economic storm just now is affecting everybody. But businesses are a core part of what we're about here in Angus, and our taxi trade is vitally important to so many people, and it's not going to be can't keep operating. So,
thank you for that, Councillor Scott.
It's kind of already been said. What's been said, I think it's important that we protect the taxis as a business, so that there is taxis available for people in the community to use. So therefore, I would disagree with Councillor Meakin's 9.5% and go with 11.5%. As we said earlier, the taxi drivers have had a freeze for a long time. It's a long time since they've had an increase, and I think it's time that they had one. Thanks.
Thank you. Any more
Sorry,
comments?
could I just check, convener, if Councillor Meakin's got a seconder for his amendment?
Okay.
I can't see anyone seconding, therefore this amendment has fallen. It's only the motion that's on the table, which is moved by yourself, seconded by Councillor Whiteside, that the increase be the 11.5% as detailed in Appendix 5 and the reasons given previously. Tina, may wish to speak?
Yep. Tina.
Hi, Fiona. It's just to confirm all of the recommendations within the report. Some are for noting and.
Okay. Want me to read the recommendations?
But I think we've already recommended. So do we want to, Tina, do you want to go through with just the recommendations just to what we already read out?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that everybody's agreeable to everything that's in the report and what's recommended.
We've got a lot of a lot of paperwork.
Do you want me to read them out, or Fiona, are you happy to do that?
Yeah, we could read them out. So we're just
Great.
recommendation 1, further consider the taxi fare review representations appendix 1 to this report previously considered by the committee. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
2, further consider the table illustrating current and proposed options contained in appendix 2 previously considered by the committee on the 9th of June.
Agreed.
Agreed.
3, you've considered Appendix 4 containing the written representations received following publication in the Courier and Advertiser of the committee's proposed scales, which are contained in Appendix 3, and the table of fares at Appendix 5, which fares increased by example percentages, showing fares increased by example percentages. That's 3. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
He fixes the taxi fare scales, including waiting charges, either by choosing from illustrated options or otherwise. At that point, Tina, is that because we're choosing the option in Appendix 5, it's the 11.5% increase for the reasons previously given. 5, delegates authority to the Director of Legal and Democratic Services to implement the fixed fare scale. That'll be the one that you've just agreed, the 11.5%, following sections 17, 4D, 4E and 5 of the Civic Government Scotland Act 1982 in consultation with Police Scotland. Agreed?
Agreed.
6, notes that any recommended increase represents the maximum fare chargeable by taxi drivers and is not a compulsory fare. And 7, notes the requirements in terms of meter charges within the body of the report and determines to follow the process currently used by Dundee City Council in the event of any meter charge. And 8, determines the implementation date of the new scale fares being the 30th of September 2022.
Agreed.
Thank you. Anyone want to make any comments? I was just wanting to make a comment that this
I think Councillor Durno, we've agreed the report.
That's it. Okay, right. Just want to say this was a really difficult one, and thank you everybody in the board for making this decision.
Okay, and Mr. Gibson and Mrs. Foreman could maybe just leave the meeting now.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, convener, before we move on to the next item, I just draw your attention that we're nearing the 3-hour limit. So would the committee be minded to suspend Standing Order 21?
Is now exiting.
Suspend Standing Order 21.8 to continue with the business. Is everyone happy to do that?
Just wondered if anybody wants to have a break.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Could we break for 10-15 minutes, Mrs. Anderson?
You could break for longer if you want.
Let people get a coffee, because we'll have still got some delicate issues to deal with later on. So maybe if everybody could have a break, maybe for 20 minutes to have a coffee or whatever, toilet break.
Can I just make a point? I have children in learning at 2 o'clock. Just to make you aware of that, convener.
Sorry, Councillor Gregg, that's been cancelled.
Cancelled.
Yes.
Okay, scrap
Oh,
that then.
you'll get your lunch after all.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Well,
Yeah.
Okay,
it's just so that, I mean, because we do have 3 members of the public later, so it's just to let them know. So do you want to do a 20-minute adjournment just now and then continue with the business when we come back? Convener?
Is that enough time for you, Jill? Best 20 minutes, okay? Yeah.
So if we meet back at 1:10, maybe that time?
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks everybody for being so helpful.
Okay. Okay,
Right, thanks.
convener.
Back everybody. We're now on number 7, which is the new Civic Licensing Safety of Sports Ground Act 1975 report by the Director of Legal and Democratic Services. Who's going to present this report? It's you, Tina. Thank you. Ms. Bagson.
Convener, I'm just making you aware there's apologies now for Councillor Fodder and he's had to leave the meeting.
That's great. Okay, thank you for letting me know.
Yes, hello again, councillors. This is just I think it's a fairly short compass, and I think everybody's aware of the issues here. It's just really to change an internal delegation, set up a new regime. I hope everybody's had the opportunity to look at that. There's quite a lot of recommendations, but I would just ask that we go through those one by one. Unless you have any questions for me, there won't be anybody else really involved in this. Lee Tom might have some commentary, but I don't know that there's much that you'll be needing from me.
Okay, it's recommended that the committee note the draft document, Safety Advisory Group for Sports Grounds, terms of reference attached as Appendix 1 to this report, agrees to consult Police Scotland, the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service and Scottish Ambulance Service in regard to draft document, Safety Advisory Group for Sports Grounds, terms of reference, delegated authority to service leader planning and sustainable growth on their nominated representative, to make any non-significant changes to the Safety Advisory Group for Sports Grounds terms of reference that are necessary following the consultation reference and recommendation 2 above prior to publication of the final version, provided that any significant changes are brought back to the committee for consideration. Confirm, amend or replace general safety certificates for designated sports grounds in accordance with the Safety of Scotland's Ground Act 1975 in the case of no conflict of interest and or objections. To issue special safety certificates in respect of the use of designated sports grounds for an activity or number of activities specified in the certificate on or occasion of a number of occasions in the case of no conflict of interest and or objections. To chair the Safety Advisory Group for designated sports grounds within the Angus Council local authority area in accordance with the Safety Advisory Group for sports grounds terms of reference, and to serve or amend a prohibited notice on any designated sports ground or parts of grounds where deemed necessary. Agrees that any necessary changes will be made to the Council's scheme of delegation to take account of any powers delegated to the service leader, planning and sustainable growth by committee as a result of recommendations above. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Yeah, agreed. Okay. It's quite a long, I'll have to move down fast for this one to go to the next one. Nearly there. Okay, we're moving on to agenda item number 8. Civic Licensing Committee Animal Welfare Licensing Regime Report by Legal and Democratic Services. Okay.
We don't normally present like we would at Development Standards Councillor, but this is the report that members have had sight of. The detail is there. It's a new licensing regime. Again, there are a number of recommendations. I just wonder whether members have any queries about this report.
Okay, Councillor Melville.
Yeah, thanks. Under Appendix 2, which is the fares, I'll just give you a minute to scroll through.
Yeah, it's okay, I know. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, and now this is just my own curiosity, is why are the prices £207.50 and £167.50? Why the £7.50 on the end, just out of curiosity?
Well, as you can see from the body of the report, we're directed to take various things into consideration when arriving at the fee. It's not an exact science. It's obviously a new regime and something that I have to reflect on and consider. But the fees are made up broadly of, obviously, there's an inspection report which comes from our ECP colleagues, and that will take a lot of time. So that fee's covered. The processing fee for the licensing team, and then separately the legal team. Then there's also the potential for matters to go before yourselves and the preparation and the cost of that, and also sundry, for example, IT systems and stamps and that sort of thing. So it's a figure that I've arrived at with information that I have internally, and that's what I'm presented to you. If you wanted me to give you the exact figures, I would say probably we should do that in a private session so you understand that, and then we could come back out into the public domain.
Thanks. Just want that clarified. Thank you.
Of course. I'm happy to give any more information that I can.
Councillor Whiteside.
Thanks, convener, and thanks for that explanation, Tina. I'm just wondering, do you have any idea what, I think we would all be keen to give a discount to charitable organisations, but have any idea what proportion that would be and what sort of impact that would have?
Well, I think it's, if you bear with me one moment, I did some sort of investigation into what other councils have done and what we've done before. So for public entertainment licenses at Angus Council, bear with me, sorry, I should have had this to hand. That is one where a committee have already given a specific discount to organisations such as that. So, for example, I can't give you the percentages, I'm not very mathematically minded, but for a 1 year temporary public entertainment licence for an event that was less than 200, the cost would be £156. For a charity, they would be charged £39. For a 3-year licence for less than 200, it'd be £312, and a charity would be charged £79. So during the research that I was doing with regard to other authorities, there were varying sort of degrees, but I think 50% was on or around the rough sort of percentage discount that was given. But it's absolutely a matter for you to consider what you think is appropriate in the circumstances.
Thanks, Tina. I was more
oh, sorry.
I was more worried. Well, I wasn't worried, but I'm just wondering how many charities do you think will need this, so that how much impact will it have on the income that's generated if we give them a reasonable discount?
We just don't know. We don't know. It's a completely new licensing regime. We just don't know, A, how many have got charitable status, who will apply. It's just something a little bit unknown. What I would say is, with regard to the report, it's Mrs. Burns' report, but her recommendation has been that we look at a 1 year. There is the option within the legislation for a 1, 2, 3 year licence, but within the legislation it tells us upon what basis those suggestions should be made for a 1, 2, 3 year licence. On that basis, we have suggested that in the first year of the licensing regime, because we don't have information really to inform the licence period or all costs, because it is something that's new, that we grant for 1 year in the initial, and then my feeling was that we would certainly bring back another report with regard to 1, 2, 3 year licenses, and at that stage perhaps that would be clearer more generally about numbers, and I'd be able to give concrete information at that stage.
That makes sense, thank you.
Sorry.
Right. Obviously, there's a lot of recommendations for this one for me to read out. So I hope everyone's read the recommendations and can agree them okay. Is that okay with everybody? So,
do we need to agree, convener, about the charitable organisations?
Yeah, could we have the paper amended to come back, or what? How do we go about that, Tina? Just
so basically, I would just probably run quickly through them. So for committee is 1.1 noted.
Agreed.
1.2, you've considered the fees and charges. You need to determine the fees and charges. So you'll actively have to make a decision on that, members. on 1 and 2, as Councillor Whiteside indicated. That's an active decision for yourselves to make about the charities and the fees.
Could I propose that we reduce the charities fees by 50% and agree to the suggested fees?
That sounds reasonable. Yeah.
I would say that, yeah.
Yeah. Fine, because there will be the session a lot more dogs and cats, etc., being found homeless, and we will need to take that into consideration. Yeah, I'm fine with that if everybody else is fine with that. Okay.
Just checking that's a unanimous decision of the committee.
Hands up.
Yeah.
Great. Right, thank you. Can you amend that papers before you do them? Yeah. That will go into the papers, won't it?
It'll go on to, that's the decision, so that's what charities will be charged.
That's great. Thank you very
Going
much.
forward. We're not finished, sorry, Councillor.
Yeah, you're not finished.
No, part 4 is for a committee to decide if you consider it appropriate in year 1 of the licensing regime that all new licenses should be granted for an initial period of 1 year. I don't know if what your view on that is.
Agreed.
Yeah, because circumstances.
5 is to consider whether and what circumstances an inspection should be carried out in respect of an application for a licence for animal rehoming activities. And that's addressed within the body of the report for information. I don't know. You have to decide that, members.
That be yearly to go coincide with the licence? Could that be yearly?
It can be, yeah. It could be that you are of the view that in the first year all of them should be inspected, or otherwise.
If that's physically possible, if we have enough spectres, etc., to do that, that would be a good thing to do if we do have the manpower to do it.
I've no reason to think that we couldn't accommodate that, Councillor Durno.
Okay. Well, I agree. Well, a yearly visit.
Great.
Great.
Then the next 2 are delegations to the Director of Legal and Democratic Services. Sorry, the next, the remainder are delegations, if you're content with those.
Delegations. Yeah, like delegated. Yeah, thank you.
Are you content with those? Okay. Thank you very much, Convener.
Okay. Just getting the papers up again. Such a long application form, wasn't it?
It is. I think we'd now be going into private.
We need to remove any public interest, if that's possible.
Yeah, so the committee happy to consider going to exempt business now?
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yep, agreed.